Hey, so my name is Yusuf Yellow, and I'm here today with Otis Mensah to do my second show about scenes across the UK and hip hop, jazz, and alternative scenes across the UK. And I'm very lucky to be speaking with my good friend Otis today to talk about all things from his experience being part of the Sheffield scene and his new project that should be out when this comes out actually. So yeah, man, how you been?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about some new music, some new creative projects. Blessed to be alive again.
I hear that, man. I hear that. So yeah, I think at first, like, I'd like to chat a little bit about kind of your experience of being in Sheffield and the scene and stuff, because I was in Sheffield for a few years and I managed to see some of the things and some of the shows that you're up to. I just guess the first question that I wanted to ask is just yeah, kind of what have your best moments in the city, what have they been, and what have been your highlights of being in the Sheffield scene, I guess, in your time?
Yeah, I mean, Sheffield's a beautiful city in terms of we've got so much incredible artists here. We've got so much incredible talent. There's so much creativity in the city. And I grew up in the city, so I'm from Sheffield, and it wasn't really something that I was a part of. It wasn't really an ecosystem that I knew existed up until leaving Sheffield for university or college or whatever, and then coming back to Sheffield, having that sort of mental break from, I guess, that shadow that is often hovering over our home. It's like that sort of taint of home. You forget that you can actually see it and discover your city independently for yourself. Because it's got a taint of home, if you will. Which is combined with beautiful memories, but also sometimes it can feel like you're not fully independent in your own city. So when I went and came back, I had a new perspective. I wanted to discover new artists. I wasn't sure that they existed because I'd lived somewhat of a secluded life on the internet as a teenager
Sure.
up until leaving for uni. So I ended up going to a spot called Food Hall in Sheffield, and I saw a show by a band called Katie Pham and the Moonbathers, and this sort of changed my perspective very quickly in Sheffield. I was like, "Yo, this exists in Sheffield," because I'd started getting used to going to things like that in the South a little bit. So it was like a breath of fresh air, and I was like, "Oh wow, I've just been missing out on this my whole life." And then I got to talking to Jackie Moonbaver from the group, and he introduced me to a bunch of people, and he produced a bunch of things, and Katie Pham and the Moonbathers invited me to perform on their shows, and it was a really sort of like transformative moment in my perception of Sheffield music. I then met KOG, who's such an incredible musician, an incredible futurist by way of music and creativity, and again seeing that he was based in Sheffield and yet conquering international live music and just killing it and pushing boundaries and the envelope of music and art. It was just so like mind-blowing to me. So it was a true metamorphosis, and yeah, I've just been trying to exist in Sheffield ever since. I mean, there are many like personal difficulties with the city. I think it's difficult because perhaps we don't have as many venues as we could have, perhaps opposed to a city like Leeds, which sometimes can make it hard. I think a lot of touring artists often miss out Sheffield. So there's many tricky things about it, but I mean, all I can say is there's beautiful art that exists here.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the note of some of the things you said, I was wondering from your experience, like firstly, what kind of, I guess, venues and like locations and promoters kind of have like had the biggest impact on your journey in Sheffield, I guess. Say, as if I were a new artist coming to Sheffield trying to discover the scene, like what would be, you know, the venues and yeah, the kind of different promoters to look out for?
That's a hard question because so much has changed since the pandemic, and I believe the pandemic's really had an impact on the city and the city's music, live music and stuff of that nature. So it's a tricky question. I mean, BBC Radio introducing in the city were really really important, impactful for me. They got me the opportunity, after uploading my music time and time again onto BBC Introducing in Sheffield, I got the opportunity to perform at Glastonbury Music Festival on the BBC Introducing stage. This was really sort of like career changing for me because it then gave me something to pitch for shows with. I was able to then, I don't know, go on to support artists like I don't know, Killer Priest from the Wu-Tang affiliate, the legend Killer Priest. I was able to go on to, I don't know, play shows alongside Mahalia and tour with artists, some of my favorite artists around Europe, like Blue and Exile. So, and I feel that Glastonbury somehow was the start of that. It also, the video that got shared from my Glastonbury music performance got into the hands of our, at the time, forthcoming beloved Lord Mayor Majid, and he presented me with the opportunity to be the city's first ever poet laureate. And
ask you about that, man.
Yeah, and that really changed everything for me. It allowed me to think more about my art as a sort of multidisciplinary entity, and thinking about how poetry and the music that I've grown up listening to sort of converse with each other, you know, and how that happens culturally, and sometimes how that's neglected in more traditionalist art settings or poetry settings, and it allowed me to think about how I can break down those barriers in perception within the local poetry scene, thinking about how poetry and music meet, you know. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
That's amazing, man. And do you feel, have you got many more plans with your poetry at the moment? Because obviously I know you got this project coming, but you've already put out Safe Metamorphosis, the book, which I love, by the way. Have you got more poetry to put out soon in the future, or any plans with your poetry in the future? I don't know.
Yes, I've indeed been ghosting myself, hiding inside the cave, and I've been working on a new poetry book. So I've got a new poetry book coming out. I'm not quite sure what date that will be out, but yeah, I'm working on a new collection of poetry called Drawn and Quartered. So that's going to be fun, and you know, the way I think about it is I'm seeing the poetry and music combined in worlds, and yeah, I've got some new music coming out as well, as you know, a new EP as well.
Yeah, we're gonna touch on that, man. We're gonna touch on that for sure. I guess another question about, so while I was in Chef, like I was lucky enough to meet some of these artists that you mentioned, like such as Jackie, Katie, and KOG. But I was wondering, have there been, you know, any other artists that have stood out to you in your time, and people that you think, you know, in the Sheffield scene that we should look out for and listen to, in your opinion? If you could list any artists that you'd recommend from Chef for people.
There's so many. Yeah. So of course, all the projects that KOG is doing are just incredible. So he's got the band Anipa, and then he's got his solo project, and he put out such an incredible album, Zone 6. I mean, it's like mind-blowing to me, and yeah, it's such a beautiful album. So if you haven't heard it, go check that album out.
I'm gonna be playing a few of those songs after, actually, on the next segment. So yeah, you'll hear it on there for sure.
Incredible. And then there's of course Franz Vaughan, who has worked with KOG quite a bit, and he's just an incredible MC, an incredible artist. He put out a song called Her Frequency, which is, again, just an amazing piece of art. You've got MCs and artists like Matic Mouth, who I think are incredible musicians, credible artists. You've got Aziza, who, yeah, she's incredible. Just an incredible vocalist, an incredible live musician. I've seen her perform with KOG, and yeah, some of the best live performances I've ever witnessed. We've of course got our mutual friend and the incredible artist who's based in Sheffield at the moment, Siegfried Komodachi, and Yeah, you know, like mind-blowing art,
Mm.
boundary pushing art, limitless, boundless art. Yeah, so
Definitely.
I'm very excited, and there's so many more that I've probably missed, but
Nah, it's a
so
great
so many
list.
incredible artists.
Yeah, all of those artists are actually going to be being played on this
I
next
would have
song.
said Use of Yellow before you dipped out.
Nah, man, no time for that. No time for that. but yeah, so yeah, that's definitely a good list of artists, man, and a lot of people I really fuck with personally. And I guess yeah, the exciting topic I want to get onto is this new project, man. Things I should have said a year ago. It's
Mhm.
yeah, I've spent the last few days just having it on repeat in my earphones, man, going through it. And last night I really sat down and just tried to dissect it as much as I could and really just kind of feel my way through it, man. And it's a real journey because like to me it felt like such a heartfelt project, you know what I mean? And like and also lyrically, man, there were certain parts I was picking out where you always do this, man. There was one bar, let me just pull this up that stood out to me. Bro, I've got to say, my favorite tune has got to be Before Venice, man. The lyrics on that shit are ridiculous. Like, what is it?
Thank
Tell me
you.
if I've got this right, bro.
Sure.
Blessed is the peasant, severed is the weapon from fellowship with devils, tried and tested, I only scribe indelibles. Are you crazy, bro? Are you crazy? I had to like rewind that like 4 times. I was like,
Oh, thank
what?
you, bro. Appreciate that a lot. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's one of my
man.
favorite verses. I don't know
Oh.
where that one came from, man. The sample really brought it out of me, to be honest. Yeah.
Mm.
Hmm.
Bro, but yeah, I guess I want to ask, like, with this new project, how do you feel that, in terms of your lyricism and
Yeah.
writing, this project is differs to your previous ones? Because
Mm.
I just felt, yeah, I don't know. I feel like each project kind of has its own narrative and feel, but like, could you explain, I guess, how the lyricism has differed in this project?
Yeah, I would say it differed massively. There was a big shift in me. I think I was approaching the poetry and the lyricism of this project way more like wall-less, way more without a sort of boundary. I was trying to play with the pocket a little more, and I think that naturally came from me sitting with the samples myself and me actually chopping up samples and thinking about making the music. I sort
Mm.
of it sort of took the pressure off of me trying to squeeze in everything that I had to say lyrically, because I felt like, well, I've already added my perspective by chopping up the samples that I like. It takes a
Nice.
little bit of the pressure off, and it allowed me to just be a little more carefree. And I think with that, what happened was, with a sort of with feeling more carefree when writing, it just came out a little more experimental, because I felt
Mm.
free to do that. I felt I had the liberty and the ability to do that. So yeah, it,
Yeah.
it it definitely changed the way I write. It's also probably a more minimalist way of approaching writing lyrics. I wasn't trying to
Mm.
go everywhere by terms of my flow. I was just really trying to focus informatically on the core concepts of the project, which for me at the time, even though subconsciously, were very much centered around themes of grief, themes of loss, themes of feeling weathered by time. I mean, I wrote this in the heart of the pandemic, right at the start, at the beginning of 2020. And I wrote it all. This is another way that it differs. I wrote it all in the span of maybe a week,
Oh,
as opposed to saying, I'm going to write a song here and then I'm going to add it to. It became this,
mm.
yeah, it became this sort of like obsessive creative project where I couldn't let it go,
Interesting.
you know?
Nice. Because I was gonna like a later question I was gonna ask was, because I haven't talked to you yet about your writing process, and I wondered like, because this differs so much between different artists and writers. Sometimes people will start a verse, leave it there, come back to it, and you know what I mean? Or like for me personally, if I start it, I like to just get the whole song done in one flow, and then I don't know, maybe it'll be a while before I do another song. But you were saying
Mm-hmm.
this one was done just all in the space of a week. But like while writing it, kind of what is your approach in terms of you know, writing the verse, for example? This is just
Yeah.
from a writer's just my I'm intrigued. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. It differs from artist to artist. For me, it also differs personally from project to project. So for a project like Otis Mensah Exists, it was very much like I wrote a song here, and then I wrote a verse there, and then it came about. I got into the studio, and then I heard this beat, and then I wrote a little something there, sent it off to, I don't know, Hemlock Ernst. He wrote something and got it back. And this is sort of like long... I guess, progressional process.
Sure.
Whereas like slowly building the brick and mortar into this house. Whereas this one, it was like, I've got a canvas in front of me. Let me just chuck all the paint at the canvas. And once I started to see something form out of that canvas, once I started to see some sort of like order, some sort of intelligent design, if you will, I completely got obsessed with it. So for me, when I'm working on a creative project like this, because it's happened before, it happened with the book as well. Once I've got the title, so for this one, once I had Things I Should Have Said a Year Ago, that was it. Like I was certain it was going to be a project. I was almost obsessed with finishing the project more so than finishing the individual songs. So I was writing the music for it to be a complete project. I was constantly thinking like, does it need another song? How does this work? What's the sequencing like? So once I was in there, I couldn't get out of it really until it was finished. So yeah, it definitely differs with me. I do know that once I wrote it, I didn't write for about 8 months in terms of writing to music. I felt completely emotionally and creatively drained, if you will, you know, but perhaps 8 months is a bit of a stretch, perhaps more like 4 to 5 months. I didn't write anything.
That means
and then I went to and then exactly. I think I really needed it. Was, you know, there's two different types of writing processes. There's the one where you know you're a writer, you know you're self-assured in that you're an artist, and you say, I'm going to sit down and write to this beat, or I'm going to sit down and write this verse because I'm a writer and I'm inspired and I like this beat or whatever. And then, you know, with that comes, you need patience and you need to just sit with yourself. But then there's the process where it's like, I can't not say this. It just sort of bleeds onto the page. It's uncontrollable, you know, it's formless. And that's what this project was.
Man, that's that's really interesting hearing that, bro. Because like, especially with you saying that, like, as soon as you had this name, you just knew it, kind of, you were in this now, basically. And I just wanted to ask a bit more about the name itself. You know, like Things I Should Have Said a Year Ago. It kind of caught my attention. It just made me wonder, like, did you call it Things I Should Have Said a Year Ago for the sake of others, in terms of things you wish you'd said to other people a year ago, or things you kind of just wished for yourself personally that you just kind of got out into the world a year ago, or like, or was it both, or am I going down the wrong direction?
No, that's a great question. That's such a good question. So I meant it more literally and metaphorically. So it's a little bit of 50-50. And in terms of your question, it's definitely what I should have said to others a year ago, and it's definitely what I should have said to myself a year ago. And when I say I should have said to others, it's less the content, the lyrical content of the EP is what I should have said to somebody or a group of people, or it's definitely not that. But what it is the mental space in which I was in. I feel provided me, when I wrote the project, I feel provided me with a lot of clarity that I perhaps didn't have a year prior to it, that I wish I had, you know? So that's where the metaphorical side of the title comes in. It's like things I should have said. Well, perhaps it's not actual physical sentences that I should have spewed out to somebody, but perhaps it's a certain clarity that I was missing at the time. And or just perhaps thinking about how things play out, and just how people's perspectives change. Your perspective shifts with time, you know. So it was a lot about thinking with time and thinking about regret, like thinking about relationships of any kind, and I guess the regret that we can have in hindsight. I mean, one of my favorite artists, OK Kaya, has a song called Hindsight's a Bitch. And You know, like
Yeah.
like that is and the chorus of that song is like, if I had a dog, I would call it Hindsight. You know, like, and these are the kind of projects that I've been listening to, like whilst creating the EP, and it just sort of made me think about how tricky of an existential anomaly hindsight
Mm,
is, but also just how tricky of an existential anomaly like regret is.
mm.
And that's kind of what I was wrestling with in the project, really. Mm-hmm.
Interesting, man. That's interesting. I guess, yeah, like when you said, when we were talking about, your explanation, it makes sense hearing you say that, because it seems like, the creative process was such an epiphany. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? From what you said, that it kind of,
Yeah.
I guess, what am I trying to say? That I don't know, it makes sense that it would have had such a profound effect, basically, that,
Yeah.
you're saying that you just kind of had such a stream of consciousness through this project that, like,
Mm.
it makes sense that that you would, what I mean, have that kind of view on things,
The mad thing
definitely.
for me as well was that I've always wanted to produce my own project, where it's like I am the sole creative center of this project. For me,
Mm,
it's always been like a dream of mine, because um all my favorite artists, well, not all of my favorite artists, a lot of my favorite artists do that. And I like this sort of mad scientist, mad professor
mm.
thing,
That
this
was my
idea.
next question, actually,
Oh,
to be fair. I was
really?
thinking,
Okay.
how's your experience been self-producing like this project, as opposed to working
Yeah.
working with intern or a good friend?
Yeah, for sure. Well, as I said, I've always had this like rose tinted glasses about this process, because,
Mm,
I love this idea that an artist makes something in their insulated world. It's like when nobody else is involved in it. You feel
mm,
their pain, or you feel their story in the actual sonics of the music, in their sample selection, and then you feel it in the lyrics, and then you feel it in their delivery, their cadence, and then you go on to
yeah,
feel it in their performance, and then
I
they're
hear
doing
that.
some crazy shit by themselves in their performance. So this has always been something that's intrigued me, and I've always been sure that it would happen at a time where I've got where I'm feeling a little depressed, if
Mm,
not a lot depressed, where I'm feeling a lot anxious, right, where I'm feeling a lot of angst. Um, and sure enough, it came in that time, and I always knew it would come in that sort of period, because I knew it was going to be a form of therapy for me. Like, I
mm,
don't know how to use music software. I don't know how to
sure.
make a beat traditionally. So for me, it was about literally sitting with the computer, sitting with a series of music, and thinking like, well, what do I do here? Like, what do I do
Mm,
with my limited resources, in terms of my level of knowledge when it comes to producing music. What do I do, like, and for me that really was like therapeutic, because I had no real expectation of myself. It was just
mm,
like my only concern was, how do I get this emotion into the threads and the seams of
right.
these sonics, into the threads and the seams of these lyrics. And that's why it's so minimalist, because I can't produce. I mean, I've dabbled before, but like, I can't traditionally what people would consider as making beats.
Sure.
So for me, it
It's
was just like
inspiring to hear
whatever
that.
works. Yeah.
It's inspiring to hear that, because like the project doesn't sound like something that was was,
Yeah.
it's not good quality, or that was rushed or anything like that.
No,
Like the
I
beat,
appreciate that.
yeah, like I really like, and as you said, it really does feel like one. Do you know what I mean? It
Yeah,
feels
yeah.
like the things that you're speaking on, and the feeling of the beats and the samples
Mhm.
do really just gel together, man. And I
Yeah.
guess, like, I don't know, to someone that maybe might be having this vision but is kind of unsure
Yeah.
as to how to approach self-producing, maybe could you talk a little bit more about how you went about it, and how you started doing it for this project?
Yeah, for sure. So I was just gonna say that for me, it's like adopting that punk essence, if you will. Like,
Mm,
some of those punk artists who have had a massive impact emotionally on people, perhaps didn't know how to play the guitar too well. Perhaps
mm,
their level of singing wasn't pristine. They were not classically trained or whatever. But it was that idea that the emotion is centric above all. It's the
mm,
most important essence of the art. And for me, that's how I wanted to approach this. So, in terms of any advice, for me, it's like, you do, like, I think about artists like like John Cage, you know? When you listen to pieces of music that he's created, you don't say, oh, well, he's like, you know, it's not classically pristine pieces of music. It's somebody playing with the instruments that they have in front of them and injecting their inner artist into it and saying, well, how can I make a soundscape? How can I push the boundaries of what's expected of me in the realms of sound? And I feel that that's what I really wanted to do. I wanted to get in front of the piano. I can't play piano. I mean, I could fool somebody that I could play piano, but anybody who could play piano was watching me, they would know that I'm doing a similar thing over and over. But that's the thing, it doesn't...
With the tune with the grand piano loop, was that you playing?
Yeah, that's just me
nice.
in food hall on the grand piano. But that's the thing. The thing is like I feel like 80% of this creative process is how sure of you are you of your ideas, because everything is subservient to that. You know, if I go up and pick up a trumpet today, and I've never played trumpet in my life, if I set up a mic and I start blowing on the shit, I guarantee you if I play it for long enough, there's going to be something worth beauty in there that I can sample. And that's the way I saw it. I got in front of the piano, I played for maybe 3 hours. I got back home, I put that into the computer, I was like, that sounds like it's somebody who can play piano. That sounds like the emotional state that I want to accomplish. So for me, it was about taking that approach, and that's the approach that I will always take to making music, because for me, music isn't a theoretical process. It's not about making things sound like they're supposed to sound. It's about making things sound emotionally accurate to your state, you know? And so that's the advice I would give to anyone who's wanting to self-produce.
That's great advice, man. It's definitely something I want to dive into. Like I'm still yet to do my first self-produced project, but like it's something I really do want to dive into one day, man. And definitely, because I love that idea of really making, you know, the music and the lyrics so personal to your emotion and your feeling, that I feel like definitely something I want to sit with for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
So, yeah, bro, same. So I guess the next question I was going to ask, on the note of, I guess, persevering, like, you know, we've talked a lot about, you know, being an independent artist and what comes with that. And there's one line that really stood out. It's funny because we started just before kind of talking about the fact that I was looking at funding and trying to find a way to like fund my next project. And I heard the line that says, trying to pay a bill from art, like hunting light in abyss. And I was like, oh, I fucking hear that, bro. Like, bro. I hear that. And I just guess, you know, that's something that I've, you know, like, as I'm still a new artist, I'm trying to find my way to really, you know, sustain a career in music. But like, I guess for me, you've always seemed like someone that's been incredibly resourceful and managed to just kind of make a lot of opportunities for yourself through hard work and through kind of just being so prominent in the scene, I guess. And, you know, I've been lucky enough to have lots of conversations with you about this, but I guess for someone listening now that's like, you know, on a similar path and just trying to think, you know, how can I do this as an independent artist and, you know, still find ways to fund what I do and get out there and meet people and get opportunities. I don't know, like if you could sum up some bits of advice from your experiences to ways to deal with this, well, I guess it would be great to get some points from you.
No, thank you so much for that, bro. It's such a tricky question because I feel it really does differ from person to person. And, you know, you go onto social media and you see people's functioning. You see an artist's functioning. You see the fact that they're performing at a festival or they're performing, supporting your favorite artist, or, you know, they're getting radio play or whatever. They're getting a commission. But what you don't see is the long battles with depression, or the long battles with wrestling your own ideas, or the long, I guess, the self-doubt, you know, the unwavering self-doubt of like, hey, should I just get a job? Like I've not had a commission come in 4 months? Should I, and then they don't see the job. You go to the job and you feel like, oh, well, maybe I'm not an artist anymore. Or perhaps when you write your favorite piece of work and then you can't write, they don't see the fact that maybe you think like, oh, maybe that's it now, I've reached my artistic peak. So there's all this internal struggle, like this internal turmoil that goes on in the emotional life of an artist. And I think it's important to necessitate that and talk about that and make it a tangible thing in our conversation, because people tend to skate past it. How many artists have been asked this question and they say, I don't know, man, you just got to, keep doing your thing, keep working. And it's like, and the universe will align. No, the universe won't align. It's not that easy. Like,
it doesn't happen like that, bro.
And it doesn't help. And I think many people give that answers because that's what happened for them. And they don't perhaps have a tangible understanding of how they got there. And that's because it is so ephemeral and it is so like ineffable. It's so intangible how you make a career in this artistic thing. But if I was to give any practical advice, it would be keep creating for yourself. Keep yourself rooted in your own integrity. Trends are going to come and go. They're going to pass, and they're so shifting that if you start appeasing somebody else's artistic ideology or somebody else's artistic ideal, you will only be it's like a feather in the wind. Anchor yourself in your own artistic craft. If you're at that point where you're doing that, if you're past the explorative stage and you realize that you want to do this for your career, for your life path, keep doing that. And I think what we have to do perhaps as artists, and as confusing and sort of paradoxical as it sounds, we almost have to get used to uncertainty, and that's very scary in terms of survival. We have to get used to a lack of security. We have to get used to thinking, well, perhaps if I have a 6 months where I'm playing shows this year, I might the following 6 months I might actually have to get a job as a barista. Or I might have to figure out how I'm going to diversify. This is something that's been key for me. How am I going to diversify my art form? For me, I'm blessed enough that I'm able to exist in the realm of poetry because I love poetry, because I believe my music inhabits poetry. So for me, I can go and deliver a poetry workshop when there's no live shows coming in. When COVID happened, I was able to continue living from delivering online poetry workshops and work on commission projects. So I think the idea is, the advice would be to try and diversify your art form, try and see which different artistic realms your art already speaks to. Don't try and go and learn a whole new 100 things, but try and self-examine and say, well, what does my art already do? What are the spaces that it exists in? And then another practical tip would be something that I've seen you do very well, which I'm quite poor at doing and I'm only just learning to do, is become a part of artistic communities. Learn to meet people, and not to use the dirty word network, because it suggests that it's capitalistic or it's to favor yourself and ahead of somebody else, but actually get to know and care about other artists and care about local scenes, because what it will do is it will create a lack of loneliness. It will create a space where you can share your art, where if somebody's got an opportunity, they can pass it your way and you can do the same. And it just makes this turbulent journey a little more easy. So I'm trying to learn that. I'm naturally very introverted, so it's difficult for me. But yeah, I think that's also a key thing, is to be a part of a community.
I hear that big time, man. Honestly, for me, like for a while, I feel you on introversion, I guess, because for a long time I was very kind of caught up in, although I'd collaborate with artists, I was still very caught up in my own bubble in terms of going to shows and being present in places where I wouldn't necessarily optionally go to, what I mean? And like, I feel like I just focus on my thing, and then, occasionally go to shows that I like and just kind of, I don't know, just follow my own path as much as I could, I guess. But like, you know, for the last few months, I think I've been trying to make a conscious effort to really get to as many like live shows in the areas and
Yeah.
see who's in the scene, see who's performing, and like although there were some things that I wouldn't have really typically gone to before, I
Yeah.
ended up picking up certain things and being like, oh, cool, like they perform like that. I haven't seen someone do
Mm,
that before. Like that's really cool.
yeah.
And like just little things, and I think really being in touch with the community is like a huge thing
Yeah.
because you know, like things will come your way that you'd never even imagine
So
possibly
true.
could, you know.
Yeah, and
Um,
give to people. You know, that's one thing
mm,
that I think as artists we
yeah,
can forget to do, because the chase of being an artist can feel like you know, like a lonely battle. It can feel like, yo, if I want to get to
yeah.
where I want to be, I've got to do this, and everything is
Mm,
so oversaturated, and everyone's fighting for these one spots. You know, one slot on BBC Radio One or one slot on the festival stage. So it can feel like a battle.
yeah,
But I think one great practical advice that was given to me was, you know, give back. Like, yo, if there's somebody that you love,
yeah.
celebrate them, talk about them, because
Mm,
that word of mouth will actually
100%.
uplift and elevate somebody's career. It will, even as small as you are, or whoever you are, like that word of mouth will generate
Mm,
literal economic opportunities and tangible opportunities for somebody to actually put food on their table. So
100%.
give people their flowers as well. Like, you know, like my
Yeah.
favorite artists aren't the biggest artists. My favorite artists, the artists who have changed my life and who I've listened to their projects over and over again, are
Mm.
tiny artists, you know. And
Can you
you know, it's
speak more on that? Can you maybe tell us who those people are?
oh, there's so
a
many.
few of them, a few of them. I'm just intrigued.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, I wouldn't say that they're a tiny artist, this person, but they're definitely not on like celebrity status. One of my
Mm,
favorite artists who truly changed my life because of his literal art, because of his music, it really like it really changed me. I've listened to his albums over and over again. An artist called Eric Mason, who who I believe is from Minneapolis in the States. You know, and I just see the art that they create as so
mm,
boundary pushing and just you know, really pushing the limits of what you can do vocally, what you can do instrumentally, and just as good quality as anything that has a million views, but it doesn't have a million views.
mm,
So for me, to take that ethos and think about, well, actually some of the smaller artists or some of the independent artists have actually changed my life, then it makes it even more important to talk about that, to talk about them.
yeah.
Because I don't know, like those bigger artists, I don't know, let's say Kanye West. Kanye doesn't need your promotion. Like we
Yeah.
give not all respect to all these artists who have
Yeah.
made a name in pop culture forever, and who have
Mm,
created waves for us and for other artists, both I guess are in artistic trends and also for other artists' careers. All respect to that skill and to that
mm,
legacy. But realistically, there's for every one of those, there's like 1,000 indie artists who are making boundary pushing work
mm,
that are not at that level, that are nowhere near to that level, or maybe not even at the level of paying their bills from their art. So for me, it's so important to talk about that, because we're everyday people. Artists are everyday people, you know, and it can feel, this is another
mm,
thing that I think is good to consider if you're trying to achieve a career as an artist. That is your goal, to achieve a career as an artist or as a celebrity? Because they're two different pursuits.
mm,
Do you want to be a
100%.
celebrity, or do you want to be an artist? Because being an artist, you can exist as an artist and never be, you know, in the realm of celebrity, you
Yeah,
know? And
100%.
those two can exist together, but they don't necessarily have to. So I think it's
Mm,
about also grounding yourself in what your actual artistic pursuits are. Is it for popularity, fame, or is it for artistic integrity? Is it for both? Can exist together, but it's very hard. You know, these are limited
mm,
spots, and that's what capitalism is. This is what late stage
yeah,
capitalism is. There are a few spots for lots of people to try and fit
yeah,
into, and we can't
for
all fit.
sure.
So we have to have clarity of mind, you know?
100%, man. And I feel like it's very easy to kind of cloud those two things together with the way promotion kind of works these
Yeah,
days to an extent, like Instagram and stuff. You know, it's like
for sure.
often feels like it can be more about the image of the artist as opposed to the music itself. And it's just like,
It's like, yo, am I a fashion icon or am I a
yeah,
musician? Like, gone of the days where I can just rock, like, I don't know, some crappy denim and just some scraggly t-shirt and call myself a folk musician. Now I've got to be a fashion icon if I want to write a song. Like, what is this? Like, what is this?
It's crazy. It's really crazy.
No, and much respect to everyone who is, expressing themselves artistically through how they dress. And that's something that I want to delve into and that I love. But I'm just saying, it does appear that way. It appears that you can't succeed as an artist unless you first engage with all these other realms of aesthetic. And it's funny to me. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's funny. It makes it feel like high school.
It's true, man. It's true. And I remember, like, I've had conversations with, like, older people that grew up in the days of just picking up vinyls, and that's just it. You'd go to the, like, I was chatting to my grandma about it, and I was just saying, like, how was it for you listening and digesting music when you were younger? She was like, well, we'd go to a record store, listen to some music. If we liked the music, great, or like, or half time they just wait to hear something on the radio that they like. Like, you'd know nothing about this person aside from what you'd heard and stuff. And I'm just like,
that's so crazy, beautiful, though.
It is beautiful. It really is. I just wonder, like, I wonder what life would be like today if that was still how it was, like, for us. You know what I mean? But I wonder if that would be better or worse. I don't even know. Like,
yeah. I think it's both. It could be both better and worse. I think it's great now that we have less gatekeepers. If you're an artist with talent and the certain stars align at the right time, you could just put something out and people can gravitate towards it. Where I think, as back in the past, it would be trickier. You have to know this person, you have to get into this label. So I'm glad that the power structure in a way has diminished, the hierarchy. What it does mean is that obviously we've got an oversaturation because everyone can put out music, which is beautiful.
I heard that there's, like, I was watching a Vince Staples interview. He was saying,
about Spotify.
Yeah, 60,000 songs a day. Like, like, what? Like, that's fucking crazy, man.
And then the crazy thing is, you can get so depressed and be like, oh, why aren't I getting playlisted? And it's like, well, because 60,000 songs a day.
Bro, that's so wild to even think of, man. And like, that's why, back to what you said earlier, like, really focus on, who you are as an artist and the sound that you want to make, and make that the focus, because there is so much shit out there right now. When I say shit, I just mean stuff in general. There's so much stuff out there right now. And I feel like if you're not really speaking on some shit, like, and you're not trying to follow the traditional mainstream route, then like, it's going to be a hard game. What I mean?
Also, there's billions of people in this world. Somebody is going to like what you're doing. There's the most obscure art that exists somewhere, and it might take you a time to find those people. It might take years, it might take decades, but somebody will enjoy the work that you're doing, as obscure as it is. So it's best to just keep to your own thing.
I hear that 100%. And like, one thing you touched on earlier that I found interesting, kind of brought me back to some advice you gave me a long time ago, when you were saying about diversifying your kind of the ways that you deliver your music to the world and stuff, and your art forms. I guess for me, on over the last few years, over the last year I've been working with a band, and I've been kind of delivering my shows through this kind of live band experience. But like, an interesting point that I remember you saying was, like, a long time ago when we spoke, you're like, yeah, the idea of having a band is really cool. However, maybe try and continue to do your solo shows at the same time, just so you have multiple outlets. And I think that's something that I didn't focus on, because I just spent the last year just doing the band stuff. I guess I'm speaking on this for people that might be thinking about it too, just to highlight the importance of having multiple outlets, because as amazing as it's been, having this big band and the performance quality is great, like, I've now got to split a fee between like 9 people. So like, Do you know what I mean? So it's like, if I'm not doing solo shows as well,
Yeah.
that's like I'm making no money from music at all. And that's something I didn't even think of. I just was thinking about just the quality of the performance. I was like, this would be amazing. But that's why I wanted to touch on the importance of diversifying, because also like we need to try and make some money from this shit too. Do you know what I mean? And it can be hard. But also even opportunities wise as well. Like I got to a point where I realized the crowds that come to these live band shows are completely different to the crowds that come to the solo hip hop shows, because it's very different audiences. Like some people just want pure hip hop. Do you know what I mean? Like, and some people that are more into jazz and, you know, like live music,
definitely
I'm more inclined to that. So I just think, yeah, I just wanted to, firstly say thank you for that advice, but I wish I'd stuck to it a bit more, to be honest.
No, I was just gonna say, I think it doesn't mean that you've not stuck with it. I think the key is that you do have the ability at any time to do a solo show, and I think that's the important part, because like, for example, if you were to get an email tomorrow to say, yo, would you come to Sweden? We've only got £200 for the fee and we can cover your flight and accommodation. You're not going to be like, oh, sorry, I can't do it because my 9-piece band can't make it. You go where the opportunity is. Like, you've never performed in Sweden before. You go to freaking Sweden, you know? So it's having the ability. It's not making yourself incapable of performing by yourself. I think whilst you're in a mental space and also a physical environment where there's musicians, make the most of that. Play with the live band. Do shows with the live band. But obviously, life is life. There might be at some point where you're not in the circle of those 9 people, so you might have to diversify then. You know, but you have the ability to do that, which is a blessing.
Yeah. And one cool transition I saw with you, like while developing your solo shows, was the transition from the laptop to the SP, for example.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said for example, but like, yeah, I guess, and it's so sick seeing how you've like really delved into using this SP and the things that you can do live with it. Yeah, I just wondered, like, how was that transition, and like, you know, can you speak more on like what that was like, kind of figuring it out, and how it feels now performing with this as opposed to, because
bro, that's such a good question, man. Nobody has ever asked me that. I love the SP. I've always wanted to perform with the SP even before I knew what it was, and that's because some of my favorite artists, I've been watching them for years, use this little box that I had no idea what was, but I knew multiple artists were using it, and I was like, what the frig is that everyone was using? But I remember I saw back in the day Bus Driver using it. A lot of people in the LA experimental hip hop scene, which is a lot of the music that I sort of grew up as a teenager like looking up to as the I guess golden mean of hip hop music. I saw Bus Driver using it in videos. I then used to see Open Mike Eagle. I then saw Rap Ferreira, formerly known as Milo, using it. I was always like, what is this? I'd see some obscure beat makers use it. I was like, what? I don't know. And then once I went to Berlin, and I can't remember how the conversation started, but I got speaking to a good friend of mine and our mutual friend, the intern and incredible producer. And he said, oh yeah, the Roland SP, you know, and I think he pulled it out and he was like, oh yeah, we can have a play with it. I can, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, damn, okay, so this isn't just this mystical box. So I had to play with it, and then I thought, you know what, let me invest in it, because it just looks a little more aesthetic than having a laptop on stage. What I didn't realize of what it's actually capable of, you know, like the SP is just an analog piece of matter. It is not digital in any way. You can't plug it into your laptop. You put your songs or your samples on a memory card, and then you put that straight into the SP and you go from that. It also can be battery powered, so you don't need to plug it into anything. So it's beautiful. It allows me to be formless. It allows me to move to whatever space. There was a moment where I forgot my power cable. I just put batteries in it. You know, it's like it's so beautiful like that, and it allows you to really. And I can see how it became the indie hip hop toolbook, if you will, like a key part of the toolbook, because it's, you know, it allows you to maneuver through things, and it allows you can make beats on it, you can add samples on it.
Did you use that to make any of the beats on the project?
No, I'm far too dyslexic. getting
No,
my
no.
head around how to use the
Bro, I
SP.
wouldn't have a clue. I wouldn't have a clue,
But
man.
I have been interested in it's like throwing samples in, like throwing piano samples in, playing with it live, applying effects, having Siegfried Komadashi, who we spoke about, play some sax, and just creating. I want to use the SP as a tool to create soundscapes live. And you know, we had the opportunity to perform at Humber Street Gallery and maneuver through the art space and think about what we're doing as less of a, you know, today we're performing songs and this is song one and song two, but today just thinking about how we can create a piece of art right here that is seamless, that doesn't have a beginning, middle, and end in traditional song structure form, but can just be something that creates ambience in the space. And that's what the SP is allowing me to do, you know?
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. I feel like one day I might have to try and give that a little go myself.
Do it. Hey, are you a rapper or are you not? Like, get an SP, bro. Every rapper's survival guide is the Roland SP.
All right, man. It might have to be done. I'll get my rapper badge, and I'll be official, man. I'm verified in the rap game.
Yeah, exactly. Underground hip hop.
Yeah, man, beautiful. But one thing you touched on was performing with Siegfried, a good friend. I just wondered. I remember, I think at Peddler, I thought. Did you say that was one of your first shows that you did with Siegfried?
I think that was our first show together. Yeah,
it was your first show. Amazing. So when I watched that, it was such a beautiful experience watching you guys do that together. And I just wondered, like, how has that experience been, like working with like a live musician?
It's been so beautiful. I think it's been really beautiful because Siegfried is coming from such an artistic place. He's coming from such a I think a place of futurism and jazz, really. Like just in his perspective and approach, he's thinking about how to break form. He's thinking about, well, it doesn't matter if this doesn't fit, you know, this can add something aesthetic, this can add something meaningful, even if it doesn't fit some form of traditionalist structure, which is what jazz is. And for me, as a, you know, somebody who actually considers myself a jazz musician, even though I'm not playing any brass instrument, I believe the way that I am approaching songs lyrically and rhythmically is jazz. I believe that what I do is breaking form and structure. You know, I've learned what I've learned from hip hop, from my predecessors, from my favorite MCs. I've learned form and structure. I've learned how to develop a 16 bar and deliver it with a specific form of flow. And my goal is to, what can I learn from jazz? What can I learn from Pharoah Sanders on the saxophone? What can I learn from Sun Ra's composition? And how can I apply that to my lyrical composition? How can I apply that to my delivery, my cadence? So working with a jazz musician on brass, or should I say with the sax, is really transformative, because it allows me to actually have a discourse and be like, okay, this is validating what I felt, because it is existing in a live musical environment, you know. And I've always been interested in musicianship, you know. When I think about our favorite artists who sample stuff, I don't see them as chopping things up. I see them as musicians. They maybe their tool is different, their instrument is different. When I listen to my favorite poet, they're a musician, you know. When they're injecting musicality into the delivery of their words, there is jazz in that, you know, there's blues in that. So for me, the two are inseparable, and I think that really is elevated by working with Siegfried.
Nice. That's beautiful, man. That's truly is beautiful. I guess another question that I had was is the artwork for Black Box the same artwork for the project?
Yes, it is.
Or is it going to be a set up? It is. Okay, beautiful. Because what I wanted to ask is, like, what was the creative vision? Because I love the artwork, but I just wondered, what was the creative vision behind the artwork on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a question I've been waiting to answer. So the concept of Things I Should Have Said a Year Ago, as I've said, is an exploration of grief, loss, feeling weathered. Now, some of my favorite art, and a lot of my favorite art, and a lot of my favorite artists delve into this idea of juxtaposition. You know, this idea that something that is inherently dark or inherently traumatic or tumultuous can exist next to something beautiful and glitzy and bright and glittery and almost surreal. You know, think about artists like Tyler the Creator. He does this wonderfully. You listen to any of his music and you see how he throws something that is inherently dark, throws something that is inherently perhaps almost sort of like engaging with realms of sort of like fear or taboo or things that shouldn't be spoken of, and then he throws some beautiful chords on it, you know, some very high serene, beautiful melodic chords. And then what he does is he, I don't know, dresses up as a monster and then puts that monster figure on a beautiful bright pink background with the sunshine in the back. And you know what, the way that I feel that this happens, many artists do it, and it's almost playing with realms of surrealism for me, or at least that's how I interpret it, because that's how our dreams exist. You know, in a dream you can have somebody that has a gash in their stomach next to somebody eating an ice cream, and they're like, yo, how's it going? And to me this is beautiful because to me it's beautiful because it allows two difficult emotions to exist together, and it really expresses and accentuates the nuance and paradoxes of life. This idea that we can both be happy and that we can both have deep depression or deep melancholy, and those two things can exist together. And that was at the heart of this project, really, because the project came from a place where my mind was racing. I was filled with anxiety. I was filled with depression. But the fact that I was able to put that into a piece of art really was something beautiful to me, really was something uplifting to me. That the piece, that whatever existed as this dark piece of art, was no longer dark anymore. It was beautified. It became adorned, and you know, it became free. So for me, I wanted to figure out how I can express that visually. And one way of doing that is thinking about the face. I like to think about the body a lot. I think about the pores on the skin. I think about badly shaven mustaches. I think about, you know, your hair growing back after a haircut or whatever. And I think about all the naturally uncomfortable stages of how we look, and how they can both be beautiful. So my idea was, let me throw some gold onto that. Let me throw something glitzy onto that to show that dichotomy, those two things existing together, you know?
No, that's beautiful. Did that idea come before or after you'd figured out the name for that album?
It came before. It started off, so the artwork started off, I had this picture of myself that somebody had taken, and I zoomed into it, and I was like, oh, this is gross. Like, you can see all my spots. Like, you can see my acne that you can't see unless you zoom in, you know? And then I was like, you can see like my double chin. And then I was like, well, but that's that's the beauty of it. Let me just zoom it in and let me just take a screenshot. So I did that. But then I was like, maybe I could recreate that and make it an actual thing. So I worked with an incredible photographer called and she's got an incredible organization, a company, should I say, called Yellow Pocket Studios. And we did a photo shoot, and I showed her the original image that I had zoomed in on. And we recreated it. You know, we took the picture, I got the gold glitter, put it on the mouth, took the close-up picture, and I didn't even need to do anything to it. It didn't need any text. That was definitely going to be the artwork, and it just came about like that.
Oh, mate, that's beautiful, man. I think I love the reason behind that, and I think it's nice to see, you know, it's nice to see such a raw, just kind of real form of expression, like matched in the artwork as well, man. Because like artwork's it can be such a hard thing to figure out. Do you know what I mean? Like often it can be the last thing to do, and it's like, fuck, right, what do I do? But like, actually, I think that's given me an idea while saying that, to like, you know, you don't rush the music, you take your patience with the music. So like, why rush the idea for the artwork? You know, it's really important. It's the first thing people see, really, isn't it?
I love it. I love how artwork has been such a has become such an important thing, like more so and more so. Like, and I love how people are
Mm,
constantly trying to push the boundaries of what they can do with artwork. I think that's possibly
yeah,
a benefit of this digital world we exist in. Everything is so visual, so it pushes you. You know, it pushes you to how can I express what I feel through this
100%.
aesthetic. You know, so yeah.
100%. What time are we on? Just wondering.
So we're on 12:21. So we
Oh,
probably
so
got.
I mean, how long have we been going for on the
It
interview?
doesn't. It won't tell me until I've
Not sure.
stopped.
Oh,
But
okay,
I
cool.
think we've
I
been
just.
going for about an hour
Oh, okay. Oh, cool. Well,
or
we'll
just
just.
under.
Okay, cool, cool. Well, we'll just speak on one more thing before we finish up. I was wondering, we spoke earlier about the shows and
Yeah.
stuff that you've got coming up. I don't know if you will have announced what your plan with of the shows is by the time this comes out. I don't know. Let me know if you don't want to talk about it or if you do
No,
want
no,
to talk
no. That's
about it.
fine.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I guess we talked about this this tour you've got coming out, which is really
Sure.
exciting. And just yeah, if you want to just speak on, speak on the tour that you've got coming up and what your
Mhm.
plans are coming soon. I'd love to hear what you got going on.
Yeah, sure, sure. So
Where
the
people can see
EP,
you.
yeah, for sure. The EP is coming out on the 3rd of May. So that's Tuesday, the 3rd of May. The full project will be out on all streaming platforms with some music visuals also out on the YouTube channel. That's Otis Mensah, OtisMenSah on youtube.com. And then on the 4th of May, I'll be starting the tour in London. We're going to be at Servant Jazz Quarters. That's Wednesday, 4th of May. That's in Dalston. You can get tickets now. On the Servant Jazz Quarters website. And my hope is to then take it to Bristol on the 5th, and then on the Friday on the 6th, I'll be in Leeds at Hyde Park Book Club. I believe you're gonna share some incredible work with us in the live environment. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have Siegfried Komadashi do an opening set. I'm gonna have the incredible August Charles do an opening set, and then I'm coming to back home, perhaps for one of the last times in a long while it will be, to Sheffield on Saturday, the 7th of May. You can get tickets now. Yeah, that's going to be at Network. And then I've got a bit of a week break. And then on the Friday, the 13th, I'm supporting one of my favorite artists, More Mother, in Manchester at the White Hotel. So that's going to be beautiful. On the 15th, so the day after or the day after next, I'm going to be in Amsterdam, or at least I'm hoping to be in Amsterdam for a live show at Labyrinth. And then we're taking it to Berlin. So we're taking the EP to Berlin on the 21st of May at a small, beautiful, intimate venue called Das Gift in Neukölln. And yeah, it's gonna be a beautiful journey.
Yeah, man, that's so exciting, bro. It's so great to hear. And if people want to find you on socials and stuff, have you got
Yeah, you
any
can find me everywhere on as Otis Mensah, so OtisMenSah on Instagram. You can check out my website where the project is going to also exist. So it's otismensah.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me,
Thank
bro.
you, bro. Thank you.
Definitely given me a lot of things to think about as well. And yeah, man, I look forward to everyone hearing this project for sure. And